Hey guys, Nacho here. Today we're going to be talking about pushing Hydra damage. With Hydra Clash being around, I know a lot of people have been focusing on Hydra, even if they aren't using corpulent teams to try and get their best damage. Not everybody's in a high enough bracket, or maybe they just want to participate more for their clan. But here's a few of the things that I've been focusing on to start pushing my Hydra teams, and we're going to show off what I've been using and a couple of the builds and things of that nature. So, um, now, first off, here's the team that I used on Nightmare last week. This is the one that I used to push my PB. And obviously, it's a very stacked team. It has Duchess, Krisk, then the Michinaki, Supreme Galek, which was another guaranteed champ I got super lucky to get. Nut, who's a superstar in this team, and then actually my Mashaled, who again is a +4, so he does some things that other people's wouldn't be able to do on Nightmare. To really enable this team to start going. However, what you can start to see is a lot of the buff and debuff composition that we're going to be looking for in most Hydra teams. So right off the bat, we have increased, decreased speed, decreased defense, block buffs, and provokes. Those are the absolute main 5 that you need to be having to make most of your Hydra teams work. And after that, you can start adding things like increased attack, veil, and other things to really start to make your team start working a lot better. So here we actually had to start doing a lot of manual runs to push a lot of this damage, but the team did work very well on auto, to be honest. But yeah, we are just putting everybody in as much damage as we can. We can show off the builds for a couple of them. Now that we're a little movie magic, and move over to the champion screen real quick. So here's the Mashaled that we're using. 292 speed, 315 crit damage, 415 accuracy. This dude slaps straight up. He will hit anywhere between 500 and 1.2 mil per head that's decapitated on his A1. So if you can start getting counterattacks and things of that nature in there, he goes crazy. I mean, I've had a single A1 once there's Hex out there on a couple of decapitated heads hit for like 3 to 4 mil. And he also doesn't care about mischief, so you know he's one of my favorite champions, and the fact that I have a +4 makes me so happy to use him. Next we had Duchess. I believe this is the Duchess I used. Either way, they're all pretty similar. About 275 speed, enough resistance, and then HP and defense. Straightforward. Just get her rotating quick enough on that veil. You can have her as your slowest champion, so she can help you mischief tank a little more, but obviously you don't have very many other stats to build on her, so you should absolutely be building enough resistance for her. And then the Krisk kind of nasty, not gonna lie. We got a 326 speed Krisk, and then Hydra, he's a little faster, 332, 500 resist, 382 accuracy, and he is one of the most important builds that started to make my team work so well, because I only need the one provoker. I don't need to bring another taunting set or anything like that. I can just go damage, relentless, and speed on everybody else, you know what I mean, or reflex, stuff of that nature. So this Krisk build, definitely super hard to make, but I highly recommend it. If you can get a 300 speed Krisk, I highly recommend it. Holy cow, man. And this righteous gear is really what started to make my Krisk build start going good. I got some nice triples. I got this one as well with the res and accuracy on it, and then I just have just a solid chest with resistance. I do have a quad offset piece for the speed. But I mean, you could downgrade this to a triple or something like that and get a 315 Krisk and be perfectly happy, or a mid 320 Krisk. And it's even an offset. You could also pair like something like this boot. I got a boot with Ascension and just a single resistance roll. There's no set bonus on this boot. I could get so many more stats from the boot slot if I could pair this with a different set or something like that. Maybe with the weapon slot, or even my glove or chest slot. Like, I've got 4 off pieces in this, you know. So we could definitely be getting a lot more from set bonuses to make him a lot faster. But we got solid substats around. So offset stats over sets here. Easy peasy. Yeah, and then we even got War Master on the Krisk with this gear, so he helps a lot. I think he did, he did 11 mil on that run, so fairly solid. And then Michinaki, we're running him in the fastest relentless set I could get with about 200 crit damage. His damage actually is just all about the Hex and keeping that decreased defense out there for the rest of the team. Scaling damage on him, just, it's not worth it. Dropping 50 speed for another 50 crit damage, no chance. I would much rather just have him faster and faster and faster and enable all my other champions to do damage through his defense down and through his hex. Because once you if you use hex to get the heads dead, you need to reapply the hex to a decapitated head for him to start really pushing big damage, because the decapitated heads actually take 30% splash damage instead of 10% splash damage. So when you get 2 heads decapitated and you hit head 1 for 100k, head 2 is going to take 30k damage. It's crazy. And that applies for all of your other heads. So if you've got 2 dead heads and then you max HP, Suffering with Nut, who does 500k a hit, he's going to splash 300k per hit onto the between 150k per decapitated head on top of his damage. I mean, you've got an A3 hitting for almost 3 to 4 mil sometimes now. The hex is just crazy big damage. You don't need to push the damage on Mitchie, the raw damage. You just need to get him faster. You need to get this dude moving. More turns, reflex, whatever you can get. Just get him more turns and get him that A3 more mainly. Especially when you're using max HP hitters and stuff like that. You don't really need to focus a lot of the raw damage actually onto the decapitated heads. You can start focusing your max HP hits on the living heads, because you hit the same amount on the living head versus a decapitated head. So you might as well progress your living heads towards dead, rather than putting those max HP hits on dead heads already, unless your hex splash damage is going to outweigh what you can do on the living head, which is very rare. So those are a few of the things that started to push my damage big with Michinaki. And then Galek's pretty straightforward. Again, we just want him fast as can be. Just get him moving. Get the man going. He does not need a lot of damage. I put the fastest crit rate gloves I had on him, and then a crit damage amulet. Like, that's all the damage I wanted. Other than that, I maybe found a substat or 2, and then we just went speed. Speed, speed, speed. Give me more speed. I thankfully had these boots, and that's really what got me a little more crit damage. But we just get the dude moving. We can get a little bit of extra damage out of his A1s and out of his raw damage, but we're all about this A3. This is all we care about. We want this over and over and over again. That decreased speed is one of the most powerful debuffs you can have in Hydra, and he has a conditional decreased speed, albeit one of the best decreased speeds in Hydra, even with the condition, because of the way turn meter works in this game. The rate at which he will apply decreased speed is tenfold over what a Temisia will do. It's not even close, because of the way turn meter works. The heads are almost always at high turn meter or full turn meter, and then people stall out the turn meters, and then they creep up, right? So his decreased speed with the block buffs and the HP burn, again, just enabling your real damage dealers like Nut and Salad to be pushing big damage. And then the Nut build, reflex, double refresh, 284 speed, and dude doesn't need a lot of crit damage. You actually don't need any accuracy for Hydra either. So if this was the only place you were focusing on using him, you could just drop that, get more speed, more crit damage. You really don't need more crit damage. Even without defense down, he's going to cap on most heads at 240 crit damage. His multiplier is insane. He completely obliterates Acrisia on her multipliers for any of her skills. On Nightmare, it is nigh impossible to hit the cap on Suffering with Acrisia. You can have 300 crit damage and decreased defense, she still ain't going to do it. Unless you have a 6-star Cruelty or another champion to reduce the physical defense of the Suffering head, she will never hit the max. Not even close. The max is 500k. Go ahead and let me know how much your Acrisia's hit for. Mine hit for 100k on the A1 when I tried at 270 crit damage. Nah. So that is the Nightmare team build, and that's, I think, one of the better builds that I can have for the team. I don't really, other than adding speed, I don't know if that team composition is really going to do more than 400 mil. I can definitely get the ignore defense up in my area bonus. I can get crit damage up, things of that nature. That's my area bonuses for Hydra is actually like the main place I've been focusing, other than we did some Fire Knight before Nut came out to really start pushing that, but Hydra is just where I'm all at right now. But yeah, we can get the crit damage and the ignore defense, and then obviously the speed mate. Even the accuracy is kind of big. Another 40 accuracy would actually let me drop my accuracy banner on a lot of champions, and start putting like defense and even resistance banners. My DPSs, if I can't get them faster with more damage, I'm gonna start building resistance on them, and you'll actually see that in one of my other team builds. But yeah, this one, accuracy resistance, is one of the biggest things I can do for my my Hydra builds right now. As far as actually improving them, getting my Krisk faster, getting my Duchess better, even my Mashaled and stuff like that. Because, like I was saying, dropping that 40 accuracy and swapping the banners over new attack banners, it's like 600 attack. It's a ton. So getting that's going to be really important. The speed is actually fairly low value here. Going from 6 speed to 20 speed is actually only gaining me 2.5 rolls of speed. So while it's good, I'm gonna do ignore defense, ac resist, speed, and then crit damage probably. And I think that's gonna be my priority of leveling these, because that's the most value for your stats. The ignore defense, if every 2% of this I add, I've added 50 million to my Hydra keys. 50 million, because my keys are so long, and it scales all your War Masters and everything up. So it's crazy what it's done for me. Moving into the Brutal team that I've been using, obviously another pretty stacked team. We have Duchess, Chris, Taurus, Lady Kimmy, Cupidus, and Venus. And this week was actually the first week that I got to put my Venus into a curse set. So she did really well. I added about 100 mil damage just from the curse set. The splash is crazy, and the way that it enables you to have more decapitated heads more often is just bonkers. Obviously, Taurus does a lot of damage, and Cupidus does a lot of damage. Obviously, Taurus and Cupidus do a lot of damage, but you can definitely swap them out for a lot of other DPSs and do pretty well, to be honest. Even like Royal Guards, I think I could push a 300 mil key with just 2 Royal Guards with this team. I don't think a lot of the extra damage is necessarily required for a lot of people. At a certain point, your Hydra clashes are just going to be determined by corpulent teams, honestly. So you can push damage and you can make your concepts better, but you don't necessarily always have to min-max it to the absolute highest that I have. I've just kind of, like, I have the champions, I'm going to use them, right? But we can still apply the concepts that we have here to other teams, right? And that's what I'm really trying to instill in people here, is just the base and how we're building a pushing damage Hydra team, right? So again, with this one, Duchess brings our veils, increase attack, one of the 2 most important things to not skip turns and actually push damage, also buffs for Taurus. Chris brings our provokes. Obviously, he's fucking Krisk. He does everything in the goddamn game. He's insane for Hydra. He does your provokes, your mischief tanking, backup decrease attack if you didn't have it, decrease defense, decrease speed, sorta, increase speed on everybody else except for himself. I'm kind of like touchy about his increase and decrease speed. That's why we have Kimmy in there. Kimmy's also got a 6-star cruelty, so it's like pretty good. I actually might put in like a Cardiel though. But if I don't have somebody else to put increased speed on Krisk himself, he actually can't solo provoke. So that's the biggest issue that I'm having with that. And I think dropping her and putting in anybody, I don't have another Salad, for instance. If I had another Mashaled, or another increased speed champion that did really good damage, I could probably swap them in here. But even then, Chris' decreased speed is really not great, because it's every 3rd turn that he gets, and it's on his A1, and then he gets like a 50% chance to land it. So Chris' decreased speed is like, unless you got an ally attack like Cardiel to work with it, it doesn't really even exist, to be honest. Like, you sometimes get some, but it's not really a thing to be relied on that much. And then obviously Taurus is just straight damage. He's actually bringing next to no utility for this team. So if I wanted to use something similar, like say you're using a Molly, right, instead of Krisk, who's actually super insanely strong, or you're using Coronar, who I would put as the third best mischief tank in the game. There's Krisk, Molly, and then Coronar, in my opinion. Coronar does almost everything that Krisk is going to do for most teams. Like I was just saying, Krisk has the problem with his increase and decrease speed. So they actually just like don't exist in his kit because they don't boost himself, and he barely puts the decreased speed out there. So you're covering that base somewhere else anyways. So if you're not running increased defense in the team, Coronar is a perfect mischief tank. And he does damage. It's like a good amount of damage too. So Coronar I would actually put as the third best, and he brings you decreased attack, right? Then we have a decreased defense, whether that be like Venus or Lydia, Draco actually. So I started using Draco as a decreased defense. But really you want, if you're going to not bring up block buffs, you have to have a lot of burns, and you have to have, some kind, like Kimmy kind of brings block buffs in this team, and I actually am not using Venus's strip very much, so I can get more block buffs from Kimmy, like when Wrath puts his increased attack up and Suffering puts his reflect damage up and things of that nature. So you don't have to have a block buffs if you can bring enough burns. Say you're running like a Tamizia or something like that in the Tar slot, right? Or even an R-Tac, right, for like your decreased attack and stuff like that. So you can definitely swap out like the Tar slot for a lot more utility and get quite a good amount of damage in this situation. And then we just have an increased decreased speed champion, whether that's Kimmy or Necmo mainly. Those are like your main two. We have Shamrock also who actually does pretty good in this spot. Shamrock's not going to do a whole lot of damage. Kimmy's not going to do a whole lot of damage either. I crit capped my Kimmy, so she's got like a little bit of damage. But that's it. Like the cruelty is kind of why she did as much as she did, and it's a 1500 turn run. Like she barely did more than the Krisk, so it's like she's not getting that much more than War Masters out of it. The War Masters just did quite a bit. So we're just running an increased decreased speed champion there, and then we just have another just raw damage slot. So again, if you need another debuff, whether that's your decreased speed, increase speed, decrease attack, whatever, you can just right in that slot. And then we have our decreased defense slot. So whether that's your Ugo, because you want block buffs on her as well, or your Lydias, your Dracos, Venuses, those are your main decreased defense champions that you're looking at. So yeah, we'll go over the builds a little bit. So I'm actually sharing gear with my Lydia right now with them because I only do one key a week with each of them, and I don't have that much curse gear. But I also am doing this after I ran my keys and stuff. So I swapped the gear, but this is what my Venus looked like for the key. 290 speed, not even crit capped, 190 crit damage. Again, the same concept that I did with the Michinaki. I just put the fastest crit rate gloves I could get on her. She's got an attack chest. She got speed boots that are speed ascended. Super lucky. I got a curse set there. You know what I mean? And then she's got a speed set on her to get her a little extra speed too. And the pieces on her aren't that impressive either. I mean, she's got a 12 speed helmet, an 11 speed shield with some resistance, literally a crit rate glove with 11 speed, and then this speed ascended boots. So it's like the gear that's on her isn't that hard, and she did insane, man. 100 extra mil from this build. I had her in a pretty nasty Relentless set, and I swapped her over to this. So happy with the results. And then again, just a crit damage amulet with an accuracy banner and attack ring, and she's putting out 85 mil. You know, her A1s were hitting 100k a pop. You know, for each little dot, 100k on a decapitated head, or even the living heads when she's doing her AoE attacks. Like she's putting down 30, 40, 50k hits on some heads, and you know that's a good chunk of a max HP hit. So I mean, you chip a couple of those in there, like you'll start breaking people out with her a lot easier. Even her A1, bust people out of mischief, no problem. The whole green bar, boom, gone with 190 crit damage. You don't really have to build a lot of damage on a lot of your supports that can do decent damage, right? You were just trying to like even out our damage spread as much as we can among all of our champions. So obviously your lowest survivability champions are your DPS champions. So if that's the minimum that we have, if we're just above that with our other supports, how much more do we really need? You know what I mean? There's a little bit of a balancing act there, but you don't need to go infinite survival on all of your supports. If they can put down a little bit of damage and you're already above your weakest DPSs, you might as well just add a little bit more damage to them. You know what I'm saying? So, and that'll really help you even out your spread among your whole team and get your big keys, you know? And that's really going to stop you from needing to absolutely have your max HP hits and, you know, your specific abilities when people get eaten. When you can just break people out with A1s, you don't care when they get eaten. You just say, okay, you got eat, boom, 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 hit you with any 3 champions, and now you're out, you know? So that's one of the big things that I also started pushing. Like, there's damage on 3 of the 6 champions here, and Kimmy's crit capped, so she does a little bit of damage too. And you'll see in my hard team, I think I have 5 DPS champions. It's just, you just run as much as you can. So this is the Venus build. Cupidus, I do have a +3, so he is pretty strong. Do not get me wrong, but he's not that much. Like, when I had him at less attack, it didn't really change much. Like, I had him at like 7,000 attack with like 270 crit damage, and it's just, it really hasn't changed much at all on him. I guess I can show you the masteries aren't really like, there's nothing special on any of my champions masteries for the most part. I know I haven't gone over most of them, but generally speaking, I'm taking Cycle of Revenge for extra turn meter on my DPSs. The Deterrence, actually, for the True Fear counterattack, which is not always recommended. This is kind of annoying for a lot of people. So unless you know specifically that you can use this, don't. And then the other big thing that I'm taking for people that have a lot of buffs and debuffs, like Krisk and stuff like that, is I'm taking Rapid Response as well as Arcane Celerity. So if you just do this, you come right down the middle and you split them. Like, taking those two together, like with my Krisk, it gives him so much turn meter, especially since all of his debuffs from his passive, like when they get hit, is just a 1-turn debuff. They're always expiring. You're always getting Arcane Celerity proccing. Like, always. Because there's 8 debuffs that you put out there with Krisk, basically. So the buffs one also really good because you have 6 champions. So if you have, and especially champions that have both, I'm taking that a lot of times. But generally speaking, my masteries aren't very complicated. I don't think they're really even worth the time looking at for most of the champions. Shield Breaker is also is probably my favorite offensive tier 2 mastery. Heart of Glory, you're not going to be full HP enough, and you shouldn't be below 50%. So these two base have really low value. However, Shield Breaker, when you get an egg on a head, increases your damage by 25%. So that shield is gone. Like, it's obliterated. That shield doesn't exist. You stun the head, and you move on about your day. It's insane. And especially if you get somebody that gets consumed with the shield, it's your run over a lot of times. Like, you can't recover from that. Shield Breaker lets you do that. Taurus, he's just big damage, 225 speed, nothing too wild, you know, build wise, like what you would expect. Kimmy, now this is actually one of the only souls that I've pulled that was worth anything. So you do not need a Kimmy this fast to do good things in Hydra and stuff. But this is what my Kimmy looks like. And she's got 115% crit rate. Yep, because that's the gear I got. Anyways, I literally, just like I did with the other champions, I put her in crit rate gloves. And she's not even in a crit damage amulet. She's got a refresh amulet right now. I mean, I can swap that over to something. Like crit damage amulet. You know, defense, whatever. And then she's got an Act Banner with double speed, a defense, you know, an attack chest. That's pretty good. Don't get me wrong. It's a decent chest. And then we got a boot that's ascended in protection. And then we went for the 3-piece with a triple top row piece, triple speed top row piece, right? So now we got quite a bit of speed from the protection. And then I just picked up, this is a triple, right? It's 24 speed. It's a quad, right? But 24 speed helmet. And then a 22 speed weapon. You know, while those sound difficult, these could be in any sets basically, and especially perception, like you should be able to get a triple speed perception helm at some point in your life, etc, or even if you had a double and then you had a triple weapon here and then everything else, like this is a triple obviously, but even if you drop the 2 rolls, you know, and the blessing. What's the blessing giving me? 15. So you're down 27 speed. You'd still be a 340 speed Kimmy. They'd be very respectable. They'd do plenty of stuff. You know what I mean? And that's a very accessible build for the most part, as far as top end builds go, at least. And yeah, she's nothing really special. Masteries, like I was saying, I just did the this split. I meant to take this too, but I goofed up her masteries a little bit. And then the other Krisk number 2. So I share a blood shield ring between my Krisks. So he doesn't have his ring on right now. It just helps him out. He gets an extra like couple defense or whatever each. I forget what it is, an HP or defense ring. But this is my second Krisk. He again solo provokes, and that's his job basically. He's a mischief tank, but he's my provoker. That's the main thing I built him to do. That's why he's so fast. He tanks when he can, and that's that. So yeah. And then yeah, I did the split thing here, got him some accuracy, War Master again, shield. I don't need the crit damage at all on him, so I just went Shield Breaker because that scales your War Masters too, and then down to War Master. And then Duchess again. She'll look like this, basically. 270 speed, enough resistance, and yeah, that's that. And I actually just got that on her. So yeah, that is the Brutal team. A wild Countess Lix has appeared! Yep. This was my hard team that I used last week, and it's not something I thought I would end up on at all. I tried out a lot of different comp variations. My goal was to hit 500 mil, and I couldn't come close, to be honest. I just couldn't get to the 500 mil mark. I thought this key was going to be like 460, something like that, but then the last 300 turns just didn't turn out the damage like I wanted to, and I wasn't going to redo it again just to get beat by Corpulent team anyways. But the concept still stands here. So we have Hex, increase attack, increase defense, strengthen, and shields for Mithrala, and she is also a mischief tank. She is pulling 6 jobs here, okay? She's also built-in damage. Like, she was hitting 500 KA1s on decapitated heads. She was just insane. She did as much raw damage as any other champion there, and then she also had the Hex damage on top of it. Easily the strongest champion in this team. Cardiel, he was hitting. I built a Savage Cardiel for him, or for this. He did a ton of healing at 10 million, obviously, and then he did like 500 KA1s on decapitated heads, 300 KA1s. He was just going crazy. Countess Lix was actually my best decrease speed by far that I have available in this, and because Tuhanarok suffers from the same problem that like Chris does. She doesn't have decrease speed in her kit. Okay, she has it on her A1, and you might spread it sometimes, but it's not reliable. It's nothing that you can depend on and say, yeah, I have decreased speed covered in this team whatsoever. So Countess Lix actually was insane for this team. Between the A2 and the A3, and then just the raw damage that she did, actually the weaken from the A1 also was subtly good for the decapitated heads. Even though Draco's putting weaken down, if I didn't have Draco's up yet, like having the weaken come in from the ally attack or anything like that was pretty strong. To be honest, it just helped amplify all that damage. And then especially with the Hex, it just helps so much. Draco, didn't see this one coming either. Totally didn't see me using a Dracomorph in Hydra. Nope, I was trying to use Lydia forever, but her fears were just, even with Tuhanarok in the situation, her fears were just too much. I couldn't deal with that much RNG on a 1500 turn run. To 1 key, sure, it didn't matter. To do 1500 turns though is a whole different ball game, and I couldn't deal with that much RNG. Fears exist in a 1500 turn run. It doesn't matter who you're running. Like, they exist. Okay? It's hard to say, yeah, they just don't exist. Because, I mean, if you're just trying to 1 key or get a little bit more than a 1 key, you know, you can work through your fear RNG, and, like, you could have a little longer run or something like that, and, like, that's fine. This, I needed to have a consistent answer to every single fear, basically. So, that was why I brought Draco in, and then his A1 was a cannon! He was hitting, like, 1.3 mil on decapitated heads. Like, just crazy. Molly, second best mischief tank in the game. easily. Her passive, so good. She boosts the whole team an insane amount. She's better than basically any speed booster you could put in a team. Just from her passive. All she needs to do is get hit. And she's better than every speed booster in the game. She's better than Necmo. She's better than Kimmy. Everybody. Just from the passive. Think about that. As long as you have increase and decrease speed covered elsewhere, she will boost you more than anybody. And then Tuhanarok, by far the most annoying part of this whole team. Like, by far. C-tier champion, and I'll stand by it. I hate this champion so much, and I hate that she's the only way that I can make this work because of her block buffs, mainly. But if there's not a head with no buffs, you're not guaranteed to spread the block buffs, and so it's super freaking annoying. And then, so the whole time with her, this was a manual run. I couldn't auto this whatsoever. I had to focus her A2 on Suffering and Wrath because they put reflect damage up, and they put increased attack on Wrath and stuff like that. So those were where basically all of her A2s went, or if there was a decapitated head or something like that, that could guarantee spread the block buffs to everybody for the poison clouds, stuff like that. That was the other way, but not having a burn or any other way to back up the poison cloud was so rough. My next best option was actually just to put block buffs on Blight and then just kill Blight, and that's how I had to take care of the poison cloud a lot of times too. So I don't know if I'd recommend for pushing damage for a lot of people to do something like this, but again, the concepts just to show them and how good that they can work when you apply them. So we have, like I was saying, our increase and decrease defense from Mithrala, as well as shields and strengthen, right? A couple poisons in there. Cardiel bringing us our main form of healing here, okay? Block debuffs if we needed it as well. The ally attacks are just kind of juice on top, really, for a lot of people. Lix was our decreased speed champion. Draco was our decreased defense champion. Molly was our provoke champion. And Tuhanarok was our increased speed champion and block buff champion. So I hope this helps you with that. And then let's go over the builds, I guess. So here's the Mithrala. Build DPS Mithrala, my guys. Build her. She's so good in Hydra. Like, the amount of extra damages you can get out of somebody that can also take a mischief hit is crazy. It adds up so much. Even if you got to swap a set once a week to do it, it's worth it, man. It's so worth it. It's so good. Love it. And then we had Cardiel. I actually swapped him to Reflex this week, but he looked similar to this. Similar. I think I crit capped him and I had him in Savage at like 280, 290. But the point still stands. You just want him fast as shit with some damage. That's all I did. Fast as you can get with like 230 crit damage, you know, 3,500 attack, 4K attack, nothing too crazy. Get him putting some damage out there. Lix. Where's she at? Where's my homegirl at? Sleeper Lix. She's magic. Here she is. I've actually put her in Relentless. Her cooldowns are pretty long. If I had a better reflex set on her or for her, I would probably run it. But again, just 250 speed, a tiny bit of damage, crit rate gloves. Like, she literally in some crit rate gloves and a crit damage necklace. And then, you know, speed is everywhere else that I could find it. And a little bit of damage. Nothing too crazy again. Accuracy banner even. Like, with the 250 accuracy, I would hope to get into an attack banner for a lot of people, but you know, just accuracy banner, chuck down what I could. Her masteries aren't anything special. Her masteries aren't anything special. And then Draco, he definitely looked kind of decent. I actually swapped something off of him. I think I had him a touch fast. I think I had him like 260, 250, something like that, but it didn't really make a big difference, to be honest. I actually don't know if Relentless was even the best set for him, because there was a ton of times where I just like I didn't need to use the decreased defense. I was just wanting to get extra A1 damage. I was just lapping the heads so fast, even at 230 speed. So I think maybe even Savage might be better, because you just don't need that many turns out of Draco. It doesn't. I don't think it helps him. So I would maybe recommend that. And then here, yeah, and then here's it's 6k attack almost, yeah. And then the Molly. I did swap her into a reflex set for this Hydra, and that was amazing. This is absolutely amazing. She solo provoked, no problem, especially with her passive coming into play. Amazing champion. I would highly recommend it. I ran her without reflex, no problem as well, about the same speed. I ended up having a reflex set that worked out, so obviously I'm going to use it. It's really nice. Not gonna lie, because he's really only using, like, nobody really died that much, so it's just using the A2 basically the whole time, and that may also maintain her mischief tank. Like, she didn't have the turn of down time most of the time. And then to Hanorok, again, we had her pretty fast. Ac-Res, don't really need any. I didn't build any damage on her. Could have, but I just wanted her faster because I needed her to rotate to that A2 more. Even the A3 for the increased speed and stuff like that. So, and then, yeah, her masteries. We did this. I think doing the split, I just didn't change her masteries. I've had her like this forever. But, yeah, doing the rapid response split, definitely worth. I would highly recommend doing this, then rapid, and then this, instead of taking the middle one here, and then you can just fill in kind of however down there, right? So, those are my Hydra teams. That's what I worked with, and I hope you all enjoyed this and learned a couple things about how to maybe improve your Hydra teams. I know some of these teams are pretty wellish. Duchess Chris teams is what everybody's going to say. I get it. But a lot of the concepts are still very viable, and I hope they help you. Covering those buffs and debuffs are really the most important thing that you can do in Hydra. So try and focus on that rather than specifically what champions people are using. Especially with my hard key, I was using a lot more meta champions than Draco and Lix, but I ended up using them because they ended up pushing me more damage. So utilize, our new amazing filter. Look at your decreased speed champions. Which ones do you even have on your account? Stuff like that. It's worth looking at them like that. Like, I've realized that these are the only ones I had, and well, which ones could I even potentially use in Hydra? Which ones do damage? Stuff like that. And as far as damage goes, I only had Lix, Temisia, and Temisia's is really conditional. And that was basically all of the damage decreased speed champions that I have on my whole account. So that's how I ended up on her. Utilize this filter. Utilize looking at what buffs and debuffs people have. Even though a lot of people may say a champion's not good anymore, it may be really good for your team. So, I mean, a lot of these fusions, like Islin even, he's got a provoke and a decreased speed and all kinds of fun stuff. So, just look at those and try and improve your teams that way, rather than saying, oh, well, I don't have this meta champion, that meta champion, and whatsoever. I can do big numbers without meta champions, I promise. We can do those videos, and then you guys are just going to complain about my gear kind of thing, So, rather than that, let's just try and take a lot of these concepts and improve all of our stuff. So, thank you for watching, guys, and have a good one.